Welcome to Coffee and Tea with Anne-Marie, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Bills. And it's been a minute since I've done a show, because mostly all the shows I did several months ago when I was in Arizona, but I'm finally getting back on the saddle and getting back with another show. And today, you're going to hear a powerful testimony from a woman who's been through a lot. We'll just say a lot because she's going to tell you. But I believe this is going to be riveting, and you're going to learn that you are not alone, and that whatever you're going through does not need to take you out. And with the help of Jesus, God the Father, and the Holy Spirit, you can rise above and come through. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, Lisa. And this is a biggie, Brenderabrandis.
Yes.
So, and I hope I said it right.
Yes,
I did.
Perfect.
I practiced a lot. But
Nice.
Lisa is a member of the church that I attend, and she just has an awesome story to tell you. And I'm going to learn about it myself because I haven't heard it myself. But I know that it's going to inspire you. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. First of all, I just really want to acknowledge that me sharing is to glorify God, because if it wasn't for the healing that the Lord brought, I wouldn't be in the mindset and just at peace at where I am now. Mm-hmm. And so just putting that out there that all the glory goes to God, and given the opportunity, if you seek the Lord, you too can have the healing. So take the time to be in his presence, be in that space, and find your own healing. I think the reason why I'm in the mindset of being okay with sharing now, if I'm being honest, I see my children. Mm-hmm. And so my two younger children, one is 9 years old and one is 11. Mm-hmm. It's actually the ages that I was 9 years old. So seeing that young innocence, that's when an adult, in our family took advantage of my innocence, and mm-hmm. kind of the abuse had started. Mm-hmm. And then I see my other son, who's a little bit older, who's 11 years old, and still he has that same innocence, mm-hmm. but that's when my innocence was completely taken.
I see.
So just seeing that dynamic of seeing how pure, sweet, and it's I know other people have the same experience of trusting, mm-hmm. and then when you lose that trust, everything else becomes murky. And mm-hmm. so I spent many, many years just hating men, mm-hmm. not trusting adults around me, mm-hmm. not trusting anyone, and just really putting a guard up and barricading myself, where it's nobody can get to me because I didn't want to be hurt again.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the story of, how you came into this abuse, or how, and then we're going to take it into how you were healed, or, you found that healing.
Okay, so it kind of was almost like an avalanche of things that were happening back then. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really interesting that the same time frame where we had new neighbors, and the new neighbors were very into church, mm-hmm. and my family wasn't. And so the mom of of her children, she would do mm-hmm. a little Bible study in the summertime. Okay. So my curiosity about Jesus got sparked, mm-hmm. and I remember going almost every day we were at her house and mm-hmm. just learning more about Jesus. I remember her sitting down with me and asking Jesus to come into my heart, and it's almost like God giving me that protection prior to everything that had happened. Uh-huh. So after having Jesus in my heart, I don't know if that's the enemy seeing that and praying on that, but it was my uncle had committed suicide. Oh. So it was okay, I'm taking questions to another adult going, I don't know what this means. This is what people are saying. But mm-hmm. I felt I had a safe space with her mm-hmm. to share and ask questions. And And again, she was really, really sweet, amazing person. At the time, we were, like, every other weekend, we were going and seeing my biological father.
Okay.
So then on the other weekends, we were at, I call her my mom's mom,
Okay.
because she's not my grandma.
Okay.
So it was her and her husband. So we were, every other weekend, we were either at my biological father's house or at, I call them the Forstads because that was their last name. In the mix of everything happening, I had a teacher that had passed away. So it's like, just like the buildup of everything, it felt like it was like all so much. And then me feeling heavy and weighted, and then like wanting, I guess, attention because there's so much of everything else going on. And then the attention that I got was inappropriate attention from a trusted step family member.
I see.
So the person that I refer to as Forstad, it was my step grandfather.
Wow.
So here's my mom thinking she's sending her kids to her mom's house. Meanwhile, her mom was having, like, making cookies with my sister. So my sister's upbringing was very different and fun because she got to do those things, whereas I got to spend time with her husband.
Were you able to tell your mom what was going on?
I did tell her after it was too late.
I see.
So there were commercials that had come on TV that said, if someone's touching you in a way that you don't like, be sure to speak up. As a little 11-year-old, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to speak up. You know, I have this influence of like Jesus in my heart. I'm going to be courageous. And it went horribly wrong. I lost my full innocence in my speaking up. And I think a lot of that bled into like my adult life of not being able to speak up to men. So I kind of like I would either have a guard up and pretend to be somebody that you think I am, but I'm not. And it's just like keeping people at a distance.
Well, were they denying it? Did they like say make you into a liar or?
Well, so the way that it actually came out, and yeah, like we lost my mom's whole side of the family because I lied for attention. But so after that had happened, like my body, everything, I was just in shock. And I can't even tell you, like, the week, it was just like a blur. Like, I don't know exactly what happened, but I remember being in class, like, on Friday, and it coming close to the end of, like, the school bell's gonna ring. And in my head, I'm going, I don't want to go back there. And I was so anxious that I just burst into tears and was like freaking out. And my teacher, Mrs. Settle, she was like a lifesaver. She was like, hey, you know, let's talk, let everybody clear out from the classroom and let's have a conversation. And I just like poured my heart out. I shared everything that had been happening and then after I realized that I said everything, I instantly went, whoa, 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 never mind, because I was afraid that I was gonna get in trouble. Like I felt like somehow it was my fault. So then I promised her, because she was like, well, you have to, like, we have to tell your parents, we have to. So she made me promise that I would let my mom know that night. And she's like, promise me. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep my promise. So I went home and I remember, like, again, it's like kid mentality. Like you don't even really like, everything's just like a blur, right? And then all of a sudden it's bedtime. So then I have to go to bed, but I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I promised Mrs. Settle that I was going to tell my mom. So I'm like, okay. So I went, you know, down the hall and I'm like, get to my mom and I'm like super nervous. And I just go like, try to get out of it, right? I go, Mom, I have something to tell you. You got time tomorrow? You know, and I go like, walk away. She's like, what are you talking about? Get in here, you know? So then I shared with her. I think because like at the time I didn't understand it. I thought, wow, my mom, you know, everybody has their own perspective. My mom's hearing all of this from me, and she has her own perspective and how she's trying to like understand the words that are coming from me, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm sure that was shocking to her. But in my childlike mind, I was thinking like, oh wow, like it doesn't really matter. She's like, but again, she was processing. But I'm like, and she said, you know, okay, was that all? And I'm like, yep, that's it. And I just like walked away and I was like, okay, I kept my word. Everything is fine. When I came back to school on Monday, Mrs. Settle found me immediately and she was like, what happened? Did you talk to a policeman? And I was like, no, everything's fine. And they were like, what? So we had social services come out. We had a detective come out. So they followed through with like pursuing it, which I am grateful for. And it's nothing against my mom. I love my mom to death. I think in her state of mind, she was trying to process in her own way, and it was shocking. And then also over the years of us like getting our stronger bonds, we've discussed different things. And one of the things that were brought to my attention was when she was younger and she spent the night at a friend's house, something had happened to her friend. And when she shared that with her own dad, her dad said, you're not spending the night over there anymore. So I guess back then they really kept, things secretive, and whatever happens in someone else's family happens in someone else's family. So I think part of that was the influence too, where she just went, okay, she's not going to go over there anymore. But the law took it into their own hands. We almost had to go to court, but he ended up pleading guilty. I was in 6th grade when he went in, and then he was out in good behavior by my 9th grade year. So he didn't do very much time.
No.
Which is like insane.
Right.
But California,
Right. So I think there's so much more attention on these issues now.
Yeah.
But it's still, and I always felt like if my child had come home and told me anything like this, I'd be all over everybody and everything. But, you never really know until you're in that situation what you would actually do. And like your mother had, her own perceptions or, dealing with, oh my gosh, maybe even how could I allow this to happen to my daughter? Or,
guilt.
why didn't I know? So while, at least she didn't try to deny it. Because there are a lot of parents or adults who'll say, oh no, that never happened and you're just lying. And, apparently people on that side of the family did go that route because you said your mom lost that side of her, you lost that side of the family because of it. But, it's like, why can't we believe our children? So let's go into where you went from there. And
so, well, first, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that, respectfully, I love my mom. She did handle it to the best of her knowledge. Also, when she started rethinking things, and then she did question certain things to her own mother, she kind of covered up. So then that's when it was like, hold on. So she was like an accomplice this whole time. Because there were times when me, my brother, and my sister were all like in the living room and we're all like laying down to go to bed. And she would literally like tell me like, oh, go tell Grandpa goodnight. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And
that was your grandmother?
My grandmother. And so she would like do the nudge to go. And I said, my brother and my sister aren't going. Why do I have to go? And she would say, well, you're his special little girl. And it's like, oh, like.
So she was enabling.
Yes. So, and that's where it's really, really hard. I think at one point my sister did speak out to her because at one point when I did start to say something to my sister, she kind of went, well, if you do say something, then, we won't get to see Grandma anymore. And that's when I realized, like not at that time, but as an adult, it's like, okay, so she did have a hand in all of this. And then when all of my uncles and my cousins, because my mom has 4 brothers, one that had committed suicide, and then the other 3, a couple of them for sure were very I was just lying for attention. Because even my cousins, when, as a grown adult, we're having adult beverages. I was actually underage at the time. I shouldn't admit that, but it was bad, right? Poor choices.
We were all teenagers and young adults once.
And I remember, my cousin saying, I can't believe you pulled that, crap years ago. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you lying for attention. And I just shut it down. I said, you know what? I don't owe anybody an explanation. I know what happened to me. That's it. If that's your perspective, like, oh, well, I'm not going to try to defend myself because I don't need to.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think sometimes, like your grandmother, she might have been doing it to take stress off of herself, or attention away from her. But that's just so sad and so wrong. And it just hurts to hear people talk about this. So your next door neighbor and all that, I mean, who had brought, introduced you to Jesus, did she come into this picture at all?
No, here's the part that like hurts my heart. I had a safe space and I didn't share with her. Keep in mind, I was a child.
Right.
Given special attention. And so I, as a child, gave that special attention to other people.
Okay.
And knowing like my standpoint, I have been asking God, give me the opportunity to apologize to the people from my past that I didn't know at that time what I was doing. Two of those people I have given personal, I apologize. And both people have said, you know what, we were kids, I understand, I know what happened to you. And it's like, oh, okay. So clearing that air. But two of the people that I had special relationships with were two of her boys.
I see.
And so it's like, and not fully, it was,
right.
But that's one of the things, like that I unknowingly harmed someone who was really like, because I couldn't imagine if someone had an inappropriate relationship at any age, like with my boys, and if it was someone who I'm like, overseeing and taking care of, and like I'm bringing Jesus into your life, and this is how you like treat that. But again, I was a child and I didn't know, but knowing now, like, and I keep praying for that opportunity for an apology, because I will give it.
Yes. Yeah. And hopefully they would understand or come to understand that you were being taught in an appropriate expression of love.
Yeah.
And that now you're acting out on that. So it's got to be
and
horrible.
That influence of, if you think someone is special to you, this is how you treat them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's not the case. And so my standpoint as an adult, it's like the innocence behind child's eyes is so pure. And I'm like, protect it. We have to protect it. Like when I look at my children, my older son's 22, and raising him up without any like, behind the scenes stuff happening. Everybody called me like a helicopter mom, but it's like, I'm going to protect my babies. Like I love my children.
I understand that.
So that was like a huge goal of mine. And then now I'm seeing my two younger boys, and it's like, okay, this shouldn't just be my only goal, like other people's kids too. And it's like pulling other people, like if we talk, if we bring awareness, then that's how we can protect these children. Don't let there be secrets. Don't let there be hidden rooms where people can, oh, they're just off to it. No, check on them,
Right. Now your cousin who threw this, this gaslighting almost issue to you, like when you were older, I would imagine your step-grandfather, whatever you call him, he was interested in girls, so boys wouldn't have been.
Well, and that's the thing too. I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's okay.
But that family, they didn't allow their kids to go around them. And they even mentioned, because they have a daughter, and they're like, oh, no. So it's like, why didn't somebody else speak up if they knew or sensed something?
So they knew something.
Yeah.
So they knew something.
But they also listened to her when he went to prison, because it's like, I'm the bad guy, I'm the bully because I spoke up with something that happened to me.
But he did, like, confess. I mean, he admitted, so, yeah, that's That's really hard. So let's, how did you come to a place where you weren't going to allow it, or you came to the place where it wasn't going to break you and take you out or anything? Because a lot of people in your position would be completely spiritually broken, emotionally, psychologically broken, and maybe take it out the way your uncle did in suicide,
So, if I'm being honest, there were a lot of suicidal thoughts. Again, because it's like you also hear, so it's like that as a child, or even in my teenage years, I'm like, oh, that's an option. I did turn to like numbing with alcohol, and just because I didn't want to feel. And so I remember, especially in my 9th grade year, like that year was so bad. I would empty like a water bottle and I would put vodka in it because it looked the same. And I would take that to school with me. And that was like my 9th grade year. I had like boyfriends, but it was just like, I wasn't, it was all like superficial. Like I just wanted them to make me feel better.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, I'm done with you. And I'd break up and like date somebody else. Okay, I'm done with you. Break up and, date somebody else.
Yeah.
And it was just like a blur of stupidity. It wasn't until between my 9th grade and 10th grade year when I went to youth camp at Sahali with WCA. So being up at camp, and again, that I was in that mindset where I was just too cool and I, like, ugh, disgusting, right? And I actually, this is embarrassing to say, I got caught at camp smoking cigarettes.
Okay.
So that's a no-no at church camps. So they told me that they would call my parents. Well, no, first they said, we have 2 options for you. Option 1, you're going to do kitchen duty. You're going to be singing the worship songs, and you're going to be up at the altar praying every night. And then they said, in option 2, we're going to call your parents, and they're going to come drive to Big Bear, pick you up, and take you home. And I was like, option 1, I will clean the dishes, I will sing the songs. But again, I was in like a mindset of just like, I'll go through the motions to appease the adults and play the part, pretend like everything's okay. And I think that's where like a lot of it was for the longest time was pretending like everything's okay. Because we did try to do therapy, and every time I would sit down with somebody, they would go, oh, I heard what happened to you. Do you want to talk about? And it's just like, ooh, it's like, don't talk to me like that, So I didn't handle that well. So therapy just wasn't really an option. And I also had that like stubborn mindset that like, they're my issues. I can handle it. I'll deal with it. But being at camp and again, just like going through the motions, but there was one specific night, I remember being up at the altar and I'm like, okay, I'm up here, I'm doing the things. And all of a sudden I just hear this like that sense of like, you can breathe. And I'm like, no, I can't, because I'm always like tense and I'm always pretend like you're okay, pretend everything is okay. And it was just that moment of like releasing. And I remember someone coming up and placing their hand on my back and saying, let it go. And in my head, I went, oh yeah, okay, let what go? And then I heard the person say, let it all go, give it all to God. And I just whoosh, like I was floodgates. I was crying so hard and I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna give it all to you. You can have it all because I don't like these feelings. I don't like how I feel. And when I came home from camp, like I was a totally different person because I did accept Jesus in a way that was beautiful. Like I was not the person I was before. I was a new creation in Christ.
Wow, that's awesome. But now, so how did that, we don't have a whole lot of time yet left, so we may actually, instead of doing the other broadcast we were going to do, talking about your passion for youth ministry, we may do part 2.
Of this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just keep talking about this. And then maybe bring in the passion for youth ministry, because I can see how it's all tied
Yeah.
in with your story here. But I'd love to hear the continuation of the story from then until now, because I have a feeling there's still some bumps along the road.
Yep. It's
Still
definitely
some potholes in
Yep.
this highway.
a rocky road.
Yeah. Not ice cream. Well, I know we have a couple minutes left here, but I want to thank you for coming on and being with me, and I'm excited to hear part 2 and to get into that. And I thank you for your openness and your transparency and your willingness to share this, because I know there's somebody out there who's listening to this, who's been through this, and who needs to give it all to God
Yes.
and to release it and allow God to cleanse those bitter emotions, those anger, the resentment, and all those things. Because Jesus, you may think he wasn't with you through whatever you're going through, but he was.
Yes.
He was there with you all the time, and he wants to heal you. He wants to put his arms around you and hug you and say, I love you. I love you. And I know it's hard to hear, because you probably feel like you weren't loved or you aren't loved, but he does love you. So stay tuned for part 2, because we're going to come right back next week at the same time with Lisa, and I know you're going to be blessed by this show. So Lisa, thank you for being here, and I'm
Thank you for
excited
having
to
me.
keep going, and you be blessed and have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us.
God bless you.